Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special episode of the Gold Derby Roundtable with Charlie and Tony. I am your host, Charlie Bright.
I am your host, Tony Ruiz.
And today we have, for our very special episode, we have three wonderful guests as our, three wonderful contributors and editors as our guests. First, Gold Derby senior editor, one of the OG people for the website. He was writing for the website even before I was writing for it. Daniel Montgomery. Hello, Daniel.
Hello.
Longtime contributor Sam Eckmann.
Hello, everyone.
And one of our newer contributors, Christopher Tsang.
Hey, guys. Nice to meet all of you.
So we have quite a bit to get to today. But first, let's start. Tony, I think you got one or two news items that we need to talk about before we get into things.
Yes. This week in the news, box office record, a franchise record with Creed 3. Shattering expectations, taking in almost $60 million at the box office. And was anybody expecting this film to do as well as it's doing?
Not I. I mean, I expected it to do well, but not shatter records like that just because it was number 3.
And for it to be Michael B. Jordan's directorial debut, also, it's really an impressive feather in his cap too.
I wouldn't have been surprised either way. I was a little shocked that it shattered records, but it comes from the franchise, from the Creed Rocky franchise, so it's not that shocking.
Yeah, I'm on the same page. It didn't surprise me too much that it was shocking. Maybe it's the financial figure that I find a bit more that it stands out a bit more to me, but it didn't surprise me that it was as successful as it was.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what this does with the Creed franchise, which in many ways is now kind of just critically and box office wise, maybe hasn't had the same Oscar power as, say, the original franchises. But let's also remember, things took a significant downward turn in the Rocky franchise after about, Rocky 2. Although I don't know how anybody can watch, I mean, it's ironic that Rocky 4, that "I will break you" line from Dolph Lundgren still kind of is part of the movie lexicon forever.
I mean, it really does say something when after part 2, the sequels basically become a joke unto themselves.
And speaking of things that have been turned into jokes, we're almost a year out from the infamous Oscar slap, and now Chris Rock is talking. His live Netflix stand-up special debuted last night, and boy, does he go to town. And rather than get into what he said, which is very widely available to be read by anybody, I'm just curious, a year out, what does everybody think now that we have some distance from that incident, or do we have enough distance from that incident to determine its place in Oscar history?
I'm still sort of two minds about it. I think Will Smith made an absolutely boneheaded, catastrophic decision. I also think the pearl clutching after the fact by a lot of people within the industry, banning him for 10 years, and it just feels like a personal thing that happened to be caught on live national television for millions of people to see. And honestly, I want it to be kind of done with. It's had its moment, and I feel like Hollywood should move on. I in the sense of Will Smith not coming to the Oscars this year, that is very good. No one would be comfortable with that. But yeah, I'm just sort of, the whole thing was kind of traumatic.
There was a lot of discourse around it, but I do think if anyone gets to talk about it and bring it up again, it's Chris Rock. I mean, he's certainly entitled to be the person to bring that back up and have his say on it, and use it in his material. But I'm kind of with you, Daniel. I just feel like it has been litigated to death, basically, within the industry. So I'm ready for, we're going to have this Will Smith less Oscar ceremony. He won't give out an acting trophy, and then we can all just sort of move on from the fact.
And just to add to that, one last thing is that I want award show hosts. It's been a year. No one's getting slapped tonight. It's done. That's done. All right.
Yeah, but do you actually think Kimmel's not gonna go there?
Oh, no, I mean, Kimmel, of course, because it happened there. But like, we don't need jokes at like the Grammys or at the, Golden Globes.
At the People's Choice Awards.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was just about to bounce on that. I'm waiting until Jimmy Kimmel addresses it in the monologue, and then it pretty much, at that point, should be officially over and done with. And I am interested who will present Best Actress at the Oscars, and maybe they'll do something like, I think, similar to 2018 when Ben Affleck's brother was not gonna present after winning his Oscar, so maybe they'll like do a duo for the lead acting category, since I don't think Jessica Chastain has been officially announced as a presenter, but I'm sure she'll be there. But as far as like, I don't think anyone's minds has changed since a year ago. And it's just,
if they can get Jessica Chastain out there. I know she's doing Doll's House
on
Broadway.
Yeah.
Wasn't she also doing previews of it during when she was at the SAG Awards?
Maybe.
Yes. I don't know. I don't know if there's a performance scheduled that day or if she already probably has it off.
I put my money that she'll be there, because I think she loves these award shows. She wouldn't miss a chance to show up or present or continue tradition if they asked her.
And let's face facts, Best Actress, one of the biggest and most stressful categories of the night. So I'd love to be the one presenting that.
I am giving Kimmel a 1 minute grace period for this year's Oscars in terms of jokes about that. And I won't roll my eyes for that first 1 minute, but anytime after he makes a joke about it after that, and anybody else, my eyes are going to be rolling to the back of my head.
What about when he makes a joke about Andrea Riseborough?
Oh, I'm looking forward to those.
Yeah. Although
I am thinking of who should present Best Actress. You want to highlight, something that have people come out and talk about, well, so much for major fuck ups that we were a part of. Let's have Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway present Best Actress this year.
and then have Jada present Best Picture.
Wow.
She technically hasn't been banned, so they could always.
Well, that seems like a perfect segue into trying to move out of that as quickly as possible. That seems like a perfect segue into let's first recap the Spirit Awards, Charlie.
All right, so yeah, Spirit Awards were last night in their traditional tent on Santa Monica Beach. Everything Everywhere All at Once, believe set the record for, after last week setting the record for most wins by a film at the SAG Awards. They got the most wins by a film at the Spirit Awards, winning 7, including Best Feature, Best Director, Screenplay, Lead Performance, Supporting, Cinematography, and Breakthrough Performance. Really no surprises, I think, at that, except for International Feature going to Joyland from Pakistan over Saint Omer from France. What did you guys think of the ceremony? What did you guys think of Hassan Minhaj's job as host last night?
I think someone at Deadline hurt him. Because I would love to know the backstory, because I still can't figure out why that came out of the blue, but that was unexpectedly hilarious that he just decided to take them to task for reasons unknown.
Yeah, up until he went too long on the deadline bit, I thought his monologue was fine. I thought there were jokes about like his jokes about Army Hammer and him and Paul Mescal on The Crown. I thought those were very edgy. Um, but yeah, up until he talked about the deadline bit, I was like, huh, I don't know if this is like what place this is coming from as far as like comedy goes.
Yeah, I thought there was a sourness to it. And there's edgy, and I think it was well contrasted with Aubrey Plaza presenting. She sort of made similar jokes about how no one watches what we do, but she sort of, she makes independent films, so it feels like she had the audience more than Hassan Minaj did. It really felt like he set kind of a sour tone that I don't think really worked as much as I'm a fan of him in general. And so, later on, bits that came later, as we talked about before recording, people didn't want to participate. And so, I felt like he could have struck a different tone. And that deadline stuff really did go on. I was like, what? And, full disclosure, Deadline is a sister website to Gold Derby. We're both owned by Penske Media Corporation. So, just that for full disclosure.
Well, and the question I have, and you guys can speak to this because I didn't watch Spirit Awards. I was out of town. Did it seem like it was it? Because just based on what you guys are describing, it seems very much kind of like a punching down sort of thing. Because a lot of the people that are like us that write for these websites, we're not, some of us, Daniel excluded, are not part of the editorial team. We get assignments, we write them, and there it is. And there's a whole other business aspect to that we have no say in. So I'm wondering, did it seem mean? Did it seem, mean spirited? Like, what was the joke?
It was just, I think there's a very, very tricky line to toe with those kinds of openings for award shows, because the sort of like making fun of the nominees has become kind of standard. It's been very successfully done by people. So I think oftentimes people expect that for you to stand up there and start like lampooning things a little bit. But there's a kind of a tricky tightrope to walk there where you have to like make fun of people with a wink and a nudge in a way that still feels like, yes, we're all here to celebrate these people. And I think maybe it seems like he just went a little too far into like jabbing territory.
I mean, it kind of sort of, the weird thing about it is that like I kind of like understood where he was coming from. Like his, because like he brought up the specific headline that was trending from Deadline about how Steven Spielberg doesn't have an idea for his next movie, and they did a whole story about that, which I actually found very funny. The thing about it is that kind of confused me is that this is not something that's unique to Deadline, and this is not something that's unique just to entertainment industry journalism. You see these kinds of headlines on CNN all the time, and I think it's weird. I mean, it makes sense to single out something like Deadline here, but I think when you actually look at like what he's really jabbing them for, that's really something that is has to do more with what journalism as a whole it has become right now, rather than just something with Deadline.
Yeah, clickbait and trying to please the almighty algorithms of Google and whatever will get picked up, and that's just media right now in the digital age. So it's certainly Deadline is not the lone offender in that.
I do want to see. I am looking forward to finding out what exactly Deadline did to hurt Hassan Minaj in a new Ryan Murphy series that will be coming to Netflix. So I can't wait.
Who will play him?
He's killed us. He's killed us before, so nothing would surprise me.
And Hassan will be played by Jeremy Pope.
Well, okay.
All right. So, with that being said, we only spent a little bit on news because we are here to talk about the big thing coming up next week. The 95th Annual Academy Awards are coming up, and we are going to be talking about our predictions. We're going to start with some of the minor technical nobody awards, which is why we're going to start with writing. I'm sorry, I stole that line from Futurama. They're giving out the minor technical awards. I think they're up to writing. But we're going to start with some of the below the line categories. I want to start with some of the more below the line ones, and then we'll also get into the short film categories because we've all seen the short films, and we can't wait to get into that. So first one we're going to get into here, best visual effects. Nominees are All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar: The Way of Water, The Batman, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, and Top Gun: Maverick. Tony, what say you?
If I were voting, my favorite in this category is All Quiet on the Western Front, which is kind of like my favorite for everything. But I think this is Avatar's to lose. It just seems kind of obvious to me.
Yeah, Daniel?
Yeah, it was sweet of you to mention 4 other nominees for the Avatar Award for Outstanding Achievement in Avatar. Yeah, it's really this is the lock of the night. I can't think of another category that's quite this certain. Although then watch it go to All Quiet on the Western Front. But yeah, it's hard for me to imagine Avatar losing this.
What about you, Sam?
Yeah, I would say there's a lot of races where I can envision 1 or 2 or 3 different outcomes very easily. This is not one of them. This is the one I think is most locked of the night. I just think The Way of Water is has reigned supreme here for a long time. So unless we are in a crazy ex machina situation where yet another film wins that literally no one is predicting, comes out of nowhere because the Academy just said, screw it, we're just going to confuse you all. Avatar's going to win this pretty easy.
They would add that to the plaque on the trophy.
Well, I would hope so.
Something else. Screw it. Who cares? What about you, Chris?
If this loses, I'll probably never watch the Oscars again. That's a lie. But
I was gonna say, over visual effects, really.
That's how much of a lock this is.
I am all in favor of that level of pettiness, though.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a big fan of the Avatar films, but you can't deny their technical achievements and the reinvention of the craft. So I think that acknowledgement, that respect will guide it towards that win.
Yeah, we I thought there were going to be 2 locks for this ceremony, and then Top Gun Maverick didn't get into cinematography. So I think this is your one thing that you can call a lock for the evening. And I'm also going with Avatar: Way of Water. Achievement in sound. Nominees: All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar: The Way of Water, The Batman, Elvis, and Top Gun Maverick. Tony?
I'm going with Top Gun on this one, although I would not rule out All Quiet on this one. But I feel like, Top Gun, for a while, we were talking about it as being a real contender for Best Picture. I think that has kind of fallen a little bit by the wayside. And so, but I could still see it picking up, a few craft categories. And I think this would be a place for it. Besides, so much of that film's success, it was such an experience in the theater, and the sound design had a lot to do with that.
Oh, Daniel.
Yeah, I'm also going Top Gun Maverick. I'm I'm wavering a lot thinking about All Quiet on the Western Front winning the BAFTA. But All Quiet on the Western Front won 7 at the BAFTAs, including Best Picture. I don't think the Oscars are going to love it quite as much. I do think it's going to win a couple. But it just feels like, Top Gun Mavericks, it won both of the major audio guilds, the Motion Picture Sound Editors and the Cinema Audio Society, which don't always translate to the Oscars, but in this case, I think it's got enough for this to be its win. I think I'm predicting this will be its one category.
Sam?
Yeah, I think, Daniel, when we look at the difference between like BAFTA and Oscars, I think BAFTAs didn't really love Top Gun Maverick as much as the Oscar voters do. It may not win Best Picture anymore. I don't think it is really in the hunt for the actual win, but it is still has a ton of support and a ton of love from people this year. So I think that popularity combined with the very obvious sound work will get it a win.
Chris?
Yeah, I think if Top Gun Maverick wins anything, it most likely wins this category. It's also like I'm also kind of like following the correlation between the sound and the editing awards, but given that Everything Everywhere All at Once has pretty much swept all the precursors, Top Gun Maverick I don't think is that much safe in that category. So yeah, but I think it is a really tight race between that and All Quiet on the Western Front. And like it'll be interesting to see where their support for All Quiet on the Western Front goes, where they show it in different categories.
Yeah, this one is one of the ones that's causing me to lose sleep. I don't know whether to go with Top Gun Maverick or All Quiet on the Western Front, because Lord knows they do love their war movies. Well, they're both military movies. It's just a matter of, the different perspectives of it. I feel like I should probably just keep Top Gun Maverick in there, but part of me is just eating away at me saying, oh, All Quiet on the Western Front, just because of the nature of it being this, massive war movie, which, usually does well. We think of like Hacksaw Ridge doing well in this category a couple of years ago. God, it's a really tough one. I'm going to stick with Top Gun Maverick, though.
Top Gun also won the Cinema Audio Society like last night for sound mixing, and I think both of them picked up both Top Gun and All Quiet on the Western Front both picked up the Sound Editing Guild in their different respective categories.
Okay. All right, so now we're going to go to our first of the short film categories. We're going to go with Best Live Action Short Film. Nominees are An Irish Goodbye, Ivalu, Les Pupilles, Night Ride, and The Red Suitcase. Daniel, what say you?
Well, I've seen these, which is dangerous because when I see them, it usually hurts my predictions because my opinions are often not reflected by the Academy. I'm going with An Irish Goodbye here. I think Les Pupilles, which is the front runner in our odds at Gold Derby, is a little is a little strange. It's kind of a Shaggy Dog story. It doesn't really go anywhere, and that's almost sort of the point of it. And I feel like An Irish Goodbye, also being, I believe, the only English language one in here, if I'm remembering correctly.
You're right.
Is really has an advantage there, and it's very accessible, and it's heartwarming, and it's funny, and it's just utterly watchable. And I feel like that's going to have the advantage. But again, I've seen them, so my opinions are probably more garbage than they would have been had I not.
Yeah, I feel like the name of the game here is accessibility with the short films. That's what I always think of when I'm thinking of which one is going to come out on top. And The Irish Goodbye just seems like the most accessible one to me. So I'm also going against our odds and hesitantly selecting The Irish Goodbye. But I'm always ready to be proven wrong with all of these short film categories.
Yeah, I wasn't into Les Pupilles, and I also wasn't into The Irish Goodbye. I'm picking The Red Suitcase. That one was this is the first time I had to view all these shorts, and so we'll see. I'm on untested waters here. But I personally thought The Red Suitcase was the best one, as far as like the tension in it. It's about a woman trying to escape her arranged marriage, and there's a lot of like creative camera movements and whatnot, and like exploring like how that could like the semblance of it all. And I I wasn't into the other four. I could see any of them winning except probably Night Ride. But yeah, I'm also going with the Red Suitcase against the name checking Alfonso Cuarón and the female filmmaker Alice, I can't pronounce her last name.
Rohrwacher.
Rohrwacher, yeah. Who I love, but yeah, I'm going with the Red Suitcase.
Yeah, I regularly go against the odds in this category, sometimes to my detriment, but I do try to make a habit of seeing most, if not all of them. And I have seen all of them in this category, and The Irish Goodbye just made me so happy. It felt so lived in and authentic and funny and real and touching. And I love the fact that it has a character with a disability who is not made the victim. In fact, that character is the real driving force of the film and is no shrinking violet, which I love. And the brotherly humor made me laugh. And I think again, accessibility is important in this category. And so I think it's Irish Goodbye.
I'm actually I'm with a lot of you on this. Lip Appeal just felt so weird, and I feel like it's really number one in our odds right now because of the names behind it with Alice Rohrwacher and Alfonso Cuarón. Not to mention, it also has the push. It's being actually pushed by Disney. You usually can't count that. Count that out. I do think though that the ones that really do have the most serious shot at winning are An Irish Goodbye and The Red Suitcase. Chris, you were absolutely right about that tension that the film creates is really palpable, and it's just like, oh man, it's just incredible. I'm trying to think. So I think I'm going to go with Irish Goodbye on this one, because like it was genuinely to me the most surprising. Like when it gets to the actual funny parts, like it's not like just like dark comedy; it's like flat out funny. Watching some of those parts, and it really just works on so many levels. And it's the one that actually I don't think any of them really I was about to say, it's the one that doesn't have a lot of dread to it, but most of these don't have dread to them. Some of them have other aspects there, but I'm going to stick with An Irish Goodbye on this one. So for our next one, we have Best Animated Short Film. Nominees are The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse, The Flying Sailor, Ice Merchants, My Year of Dicks, pause for laughter, and An Ostrich Told Me the World is Fake and I Think I Believe It. Sam, what say you?
I desperately, desperately want My Year of Dicks to win because I want to see and hear whoever has to present that category say, and the Oscar goes to My Year of Dicks. I think the world needs that, and I think we deserve that. That said, I am going with instead The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse, because how many things about animals win this category? It just is, again, it's accessible. It is something that I think ticks off a lot of boxes and people enjoy. But I'm very, if they open the envelope and someone has to read off My Year of Dicks, I will be the most happy person on Oscar night.
Chris?
Yeah, if I was a voter and I haven't seen any of these, I would totally vote for My Year of Dicks just for the comedy purposes alone. But I've seen all of these except Boy, the Fox, the Mole, and the Horse. Is that the right order? But which I'm also predicting. So I'm strictly predicting it based on its like precursor wins. But out of the ones I've seen, the one I really loved was The Ice Merchants. It's very heartfelt. It's very colorful. The camera movements also are like so original. And I think it won the Annie for short subject. So I have that in second.
That's really interesting because I feel exactly the same way. Ice Merchants was my favorite of the group. Um, but you're right. The precursors tell me that boy, mole, fox, horse. I feel like, we're doing one of those Trump type IQ tests. But I just feel like I feel like the precursors have been enough to put that one on top.
Yeah, I was predicting it going into watching them just because, it had our odds and it had the precursors. And watching all of them didn't change my mind. I think it could go to one of three films. And actually, Ice Merchants isn't one of the ones that I came away with thinking was one of them. I think it's The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. And my vote for the best title in this category, and Ostrich told me the world is fake, and I think I believe it. That might be my personal favorite because it hits that kind of weird that I'm totally into, or My Year of Dicks. I think one of those three will win. But yeah, The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. It has the animals. It's incredibly heartfelt. It has sentimentality, which I don't mean in a pejorative way. It's philosophical. And again, as we were talking about in live action short, it's very accessible. So I think in a way the ostrich admittedly is not quite as accessible. So I think I'm sticking with that.
I am if you get a chance to go on Twitter, which I don't know why you would do that, but if you get a chance, I've seen some of the reactions to certain people. So I've seen some people talk about the reactions in their screenings of the screenings across the country that they've been doing of the animated shorts, and I've read some reactions of people absolutely despising The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. It's actually been kind of funny because it's when I watched all of these, I did find myself tearing up at the end of The Boy, the Mole, Fox, and the Horse, but also at the end I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that was nice. It didn't really hit me as much as I thought. It might something that makes me tear up. Um, it's so I kind of want to go with My Year of Dicks or An Ostrich Told Me the World is Fake. The thing about this that I think that really works against The Boy and the Mole is it's so long. And usually the longer ones don't do well. We thought that Robin, having Netflix behind it and having the animal factor, I think it was number one in our odds last year. Ended up going to the windshield wiper, which is something that is none of those things, and that kind of makes me think that this could be just open for anything. I think I'm probably gonna stick with The Boy and the Mole, but man, My Year of Dicks or An Ostrich, or Ice Merchants or Fly. I think the thing that helps The Boy and the Mole is it doesn't feel like there's like the single alternative to go to. And so I think that's probably going to help Boy the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. And it also has Apple behind it, and they're going to push that hard. And they've been sending everybody. Not only telling people to watch the short. They've been sending people the actual book that it was based on. That the author is up for this. So yeah, I'm going to stick with Boy the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. Documentary short subject: The Elephant Whisperers, Haul Out, How Do You Measure a Year, The Martha Mitchell Effect, and Stranger at the Gate. Christopher, what about you?
I'm going with the animal theory. I'm picking Elephant Whispers. It's that definitely has the most heart. Um, and it's about an indigenous couple taking care of an orphaned elephant. Like it's anyone who watches that it's gonna tug at their heartstrings. Um, I'm not ruling out a Stranger at the Gate, but that personally did not work for me. And I don't know. I think out of all the shorts, this is the one I'm the most clear cut confident about that is gonna win.
Yeah, I'm right with you. I mean, this played to me kind of like a shortened um land dwelling version of My Octopus Teacher. And so I just I feel like this one's just this it's just so obvious. This is the one I'm most confident about.
Yeah, I'm not as confident about this one. I do have Elephant Whispers to win, but I think I wouldn't be surprised honestly if it goes to, and the only one that would really surprise me if it won is Haul Out. Um, but so I think the other ones have a chance. I think How Do You Measure a Year will really impact any parents voting for this award. The Martha Mitchell Effect could win. Stranger at the Gate. Both of those feel kind of timely in a political sense. Um, so I could see those happening. But yeah, Elephant Whispers is the emotional one, the heart tugging one, the animals, and the Netflix. Yeah, when I watched these, I didn't have any reason to switch from Elephant Whispers.
Yeah, I do understand what you're saying, Daniel, because I think How Do You Measure a Year also kind of tugs at the heart in certain ways, especially for parents. But I watched The Elephant Whisperer last as I was going through the ones that didn't have as high a profile. I kind of did those first, and then I got to The Elephant Whisperer and I was like, okay, never mind. This wins. Are you kidding? An orphan baby elephant that like becomes part of a family. I want to watch it again now. It's like it's
Two
what
orphan
everyone
baby
wants.
elephants.
Yeah, it's like, come on, an elephant human family. It's amazing. And isn't that what we all want? Like cute, like completely emotional, like in a good way, stories about, how we connect with our animal friends, at least in the Oscars. So I'm definitely going with that.
I feel like it's deceptive almost because they didn't show you how much of a chore it is to shovel the shit from those elephants. And that's terrible. It's always the part of the zoo that smells one of the worst parts. And so I was just like, they're making it seem more glamorous than it is, which is a weird word to use for that, but I digress. This is one for me that it's between my heart and my head. My heart is like Elephant Whispers. It's the thing that goes, it's everything you guys said. The couple in it are extremely endearing. Their mission is such a positive one. It's impossible to not be very moved by it. But my head says Stranger at the Gate because and that's one where it feels like it's because of everything that has been going on in the world. And here, we see extremism and hate groups getting more and more, having more and more of a foothold in our culture, unfortunately. And I think Stranger at the Gate really speaks to that, and is a story that has a positive outlook on that thing rather than just something that makes you immensely immensely sad and feel like there's no hope for the world.
Yeah, I think with Stranger at the Gate, what interested me about that one and made me feel a little bit like it could have I feel like it almost would work better as a feature because I feel like it almost was a little bit too surfacey, like we didn't get enough of how the radicalization happened and how the de-radicalization happened. It's just like, oh, people were nice to me and I became nice again. I almost wish there were a feature film instead.
And I will say also, a credit to this category. This category is usually the most depressing category to watch the nominees for, especially if you are watching the nominees, as I'm sure a lot of us did, one right after the other. This category could usually be the one where you want to post on Facebook and Twitter afterwards. I need a hug, but I think I am gonna stick with Elephant Whispers. As much as Stranger at the Gate is very tempting because I just think it's got Netflix, it's got the universality, it's very accessible right from the get-go. I think yeah, that shouldn't be too hard. And if I'm wrong about all of these, they will feel my wrath. All right. Best Production Design. Our nominees are All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar: The Way of Water, Babylon, Elvis, and The Fabelmans. Let's start with you, Tony.
This category is giving me agita.
What doesn't these days, though?
What doesn't these days? I'm kind of going against our odds. I am actually going with Elvis. I think that this is a film that they like more than Babylon, and I don't care where Babylon has won already. I think this is a completely different group, and I think this is a great place. My heart is with All Quiet on the Western Front. I think a lot of people think it's, my heart is also with The Fabelmans, because I do love a period piece that gets everything exactly right. But I think I'm going with Elvis on this one.
I'm very divided between Babylon and Elvis. I'm going with Babylon just because it seems to not have lost anywhere it needed to. They didn't. It won the BAFTA, if I'm not mistaken, and the BAFTAs weren't all that into the film overall either. So, it feels like and it's not common for a film to win Best Production Design when it's not up for Best Picture, especially when you've got 10 nominees for Best Picture. But like this, more than Elvis, this feels sort of like The Great Gatsby sort of thing, where you have like the most production design and the most lavish. So I'm going with that, but I'm like 51-49 that and Elvis.
I am also going with Elvis, so I'm also breaking the odds here. But it just seems like I think there's a lot of love for this movie in the Academy, and there's a lot of people out here predicting Babylon for multiple wins, which is a rarity, I think, for a movie that in the expanded nominee era to achieve when you're not up for Best Picture. So I just think it also kind of goes hand in hand with some other design categories, which I think Elvis could win, which I'm predicting that it might win. So I'm kind of going all in with Elvis and design. So I'm putting it in for production design.
I currently have Babylon. That is strictly because of its BAFTA win. I don't know how Babylon's gonna do at the Oscars. But I do think if it wins anywhere, it wins production design. And I really was not a fan of that movie even after watching it twice. So, but I do agree with the Elvis argument. It's Catherine Martin. She won for The Great Gatsby. She won both of her nominations when The Great Gatsby wasn't nominated anywhere else. And I guess we'll see how much of their love, how much the Academy's love for Elvis is if it wins production design. But I'm sticking with Babylon for now, but I reserve the right to change my mind whenever until Oscars.
I right now have Babylon, but Elvis, God, you guys have made such a good case for Elvis. I think I'm going to stick with Babylon for right now. But if the weird thing is I do have Babylon winning another award elsewhere, which we'll get to in a little bit. And I think it was you, Sam, that said, like, how many is Babylon going to actually win without being a Best Picture winner? And that is causing me to say, okay, well, if it's going to win one, which one is it going to win? I think I'm just going to stick with that for right now. But I am very tempted to go with Elvis. So we will, like Chris, I reserve even more to change my mind.
As you should.
Yes.
I mean, let's not kid ourselves. We're all going to maybe change something between now and next Sunday.
No, it's final, Tony. What you say now is written in stone.
You're not the boss of me.
You're not my supervisor.
But I do want to point out to Daniel's argument, the last time that a film won here in production design without having a Best Picture nominee was The Great Gatsby. Prior to that, it was Alice in Wonderland, and then you have to go all back to Sweeney Todd. It doesn't happen very often. I feel like in the last, but it's been a decade since it's happened. So that could lead us in one of two directions. It could say, oh, it's due for something like that to happen, or there's a clear path, there's a clear recent trend towards films that are in the Best Picture category. So who knows?
Yeah, I think I'm going to stick with Babylon for right now, but we'll see. We'll see if I'll have to waver on that and maybe choose Elvis as time goes on. Best Original Song. Applause from the movie Take It Like. I'm sorry.
Do that again.
That was our dick poop moment.
That was our women are talking moment.
Applause for Tell It Like a Woman. Hold My Hand from Top Gun Maverick. Lift Me Up from Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Natu from RRR. And This Is a Life from Everything Everywhere All at Once. Daniel, try and get this train back on track.
Yes, I think it'll I think it'll be our front runner and our odds, RRR for Natu. It's the most sort of iconic of these in terms of where it hit pop culture. I am a little bit concerned of it being the only nomination for RRR. We could see like a Fight for You style surprise from one of the films that has more overall support, like Hold My Hand from Top Gun, which has 10 nominations. Lift Me Up has the emotional backstory of mourning Chadwick Boseman. And that film has 5 nominations. So I don't think it's a sure thing, but I feel like it just feels like the one.
Yeah, I've been really concerned about having that at number 1 just because everyone else did, and it is a great number in that movie, but why didn't they go for RRR anywhere else when there were opportunities to? So that makes me nervous that Hold My Hand from Top Gun is like this thing that we just haven't been looking at, that afterwards we'll go, why didn't we see this coming? That in this year where they've wanted to celebrate really big films, box office juggernauts, we didn't see them, that they were going to go for like a big star like Lady Gaga singing a huge song in a huge movie. But I am going for RRR, but I'm not really confident about it. And this is the one that I feel like I will switch the last second and be wrong about most likely, because I do think Top Gun is a major threat.
I've had no second thoughts about this category. I think RR has it. Its Golden Globe win, its Critics' Choice win, just I think solidifies that. And I just can't think of another alternative. Lady Gaga already has a song Oscar for original song. Everyone knows that. And if they want to award like a Best Picture nominee, they could do David Byrne for Everything Everywhere All at Once. But I don't know. This category I'm pretty safe. I don't think I would change it. And if I'm wrong, then so be it. I would be upset, but I wouldn't regret it. So
yeah, I'm not going to change either, only because everybody knows that RRR was my favorite film of the year, and I think that its omission in so many categories is just a crime against humanity, being hyperbolic, of course. But I think this is pretty safe. I do have Hold My Hand at number 2, but there's just something so. And the songwriter has been out there and in front of everybody, and he's so charming and so delightful, and this was such a crowd pleasing moment at the cinema. The song is so indelible as a part of this film. So I'm going to stay with it.
You know, if we only had if either just Hold My Hand or just Lift Me Up, I feel like I would probably lose a bit more sleep with this about this category. But you know, but I think I am with you guys. I think Not To has this, and I think also because you know I've heard negative things about Hold My Hand. I've heard some people say that Lift Me Up was not the song that they should have gone with from Black Panther Wakanda Forever. That should have been one of the other songs from that movie that should have been submitted. Some people think that one's better. I don't think I've heard any negative things about the song Not To or the number and I think it's just gonna have the most raw passion for it, and it's gonna have that's the key word for it there. It has the passion for it, and I think that's gonna push it over the top and take it. And
it could easily be the best performance at the actual ceremony.
Man, that's gonna be and we did get confirmation that it's happening. So you know, we're all gonna be on pins and needles waiting for that one.
As long as the producers don't screw it up, because last year they had We Don't Talk About Bruno, and they did a special We Don't Talk About Bruno performance that I really don't think they did as well as they could have to showcase that song. So just producers, don't, it's not broken, don't fix it.
Just do it like the movie.
Not To featuring Megan Thee Stallion. There's precedent for it now. Original score: All Quiet on the Western Front, Babylon, The Banshees of Inisherin, Everything Everywhere All at Once, and The Fabelmans. Sam?
So remember how I said when I wasn't picking Babylon because it wasn't up for Best Picture? Well, I'm picking Babylon here because I'm just contradicting myself. But I really have it just because it is, I think, when we talk about the most obvious and clear work winning these categories, the score is very front and center. It's very memorable. And I have been very hesitant about having it out front because it's not a Best Picture nominee, but I keep trying to put one of the other 4 movies up front, and I can't decide on which one they were go to. The Everything Everywhere All at Once, I love it, but it feels a little too weird and outside the norm of what they normally go for. I like The Fabelmans. It's I don't know, are they going to really give John Williams yet another one with that? They could, but I don't know if the narrative is there or not. So I just have Babylon there by default, I guess, because it's obvious work that has already picked up precursors.
See, I have All Quiet as a default because I also don't think I do think it's between that and Babylon, but I don't know that Babylon's loss at the BAFTAs, and especially a Critics' Choice to Tar, which to this day I still don't understand. I just think that just shows weakness in that category, and I think people know Justin Hurwitz already has an Oscar for La La Land, and just combined, I think it has just more detriments, Babylon as a film, against it with its 3 nominations, and All Quiet has much more support within the Academy, and it won the BAFTA, so that's why I'm picking that. But this one's a nail biter. This
one is a total nail biter, but you took the words right out of my mouth. I am predicting All Quiet for this one. I could still switch to Babylon at some point, but going back in this category over, again, looking at recent winners, again, there's been the trend in the last decade has been towards films that had much more broad support. I mean, the last not Best Picture winner was Soul to win score, but that also won animated feature and had John Baptiste and Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross behind it. So the trend certainly in the last decade has been towards the more high profile beloved films. And I just think that this is where All Quiet can sneak in and win one. I think the BAFTA win was pretty telling for me. So I'm going to go with All Quiet on this one.
Yeah, the BAFTAs convinced me too on All Quiet on the Western Front, so I'm predicting that. I also think that the Best Picture trend is a thing here. Like before Soul, you have to go back to The Hateful Eight to find a non-Best Picture nominee that won this. And The Hateful Eight was an Ennio Morricone score. That was, that was a huge story that year, that he hadn't won competitively, and that was his win. Um, and this doesn't have that kind of a story behind it. Again, Babylon's or Justin Hurwitz has won before. He won two Oscars for La La Land, for score and song. So there's no urgency to give it to him. There's no love for the movie really. And so yeah, I'm going with All Quiet.
Yeah, I right now I do have Babylon, but I'm looking at this and I that I would be picking Babylon much more confidently um if All Quiet hadn't won at BAFTA, but that BAFTA win does stick out for me. It just feels like also the weird thing is it does feel like a weird score, the All Quiet score to win this category. So but that I also see, the Fablemans there and John Williams is right there. It's weird, you say, are we just going to give him another one? It's almost been 3 decades since he won. So
I don't think people think of that though I think they think of him as a winner because he's been there so many times.
Well, I think it's sort of like the Meryl Streep problem, people would just assume that, she had won all these times when, by the time Iron Lady came around, it had been, almost 30 years since she had won. Yeah, I'm thinking I might have to switch this one to All Quiet. But again, this is what I was talking about with the production design and having Babylon predicted there. I don't know which one to go with. If Babylon's just going to win one, if it's going to win any of them. So this is another one that's causing me to lose a lot of sleep at night. I think I'm going to go with All Quiet on this one. And if it doesn't win and Babylon ends up winning, I will lay you all to waste then.
Ooh, I'm shaking.
Well, you're going to end up your whole state's going to end up in the Pacific Ocean anyhow. So time is going to take care of that for me.
That's good. We'll be farther away from Ron DeSantis.
I still think you guys should seriously look at building that bridge to Hawaii.
Don't tempt me.
Makeup and hairstyling: All Quiet on the Western Front, The Batman, Black Panther, Elvis, and The Whale. And I think we're starting with you, Christopher.
I have Elvis. I just again as a default. This is one I also been thinking about as far as the correlation between makeup and the lead acting category. Which both of those correlations I have breaking this year. But I think I don't know how much support there is for The Whale as a movie. So that's why I don't think it's gonna win here. But they do love that prosthetics given last year's win for Eyes of Tammy Faye. But Elvis definitely does have the more, I think still has the showy makeup and has more showy hair. And so I think this is one Elvis takes.
Yeah, I'm with you. I have Elvis taking this one. I have The Whale in second. I think it's close. I don't think it's far and away. I think there's still a slight chance that The Whale could take this, but I mean, I think for exactly the same reason you said, it's not just the prosthetics. It's all the hair is such an important part of Elvis. I mean, the person and the film. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Elvis on this one.
I've got Elvis also. It has the wider ranging hair and makeup. For The Whale, it's really basically just the prosthetic work and the suit on Brendan Fraser. And Elvis has all the hair, the prosthetics on Tom Hanks, the makeup to make Austin Butler look like Elvis, and the hair on every other character in the film, every other background character in the film. So yeah, I'm giving the edge to Elvis, and it's a Best Picture nominee. They clearly like it more as a movie, the Academy as a whole.
I've waffled on this one a lot because I know there's more makeup and hair in Elvis, but the whale just seems like the type of transformation they always select here, and it's not a Best Picture nominee, but that's happened in this category. Iron Lady didn't have broad support, but it took Meryl Streep, and it's often paired with an acting winner. But I am just kind of going with a design sweep for Elvis because I think it is really well liked and has a lot of support. And again, is showy, but I will not be surprised if the whale manages to win this category.
What's weird for me is I've never really thought that the whale was that much of a threat to win here. It feels kind of weird to say that, but I've never really thought of it as much of a threat. I think Elvis is pretty safe. You guys have been very apt with your comparisons, not just about the makeup for it, but the hair, and you also think of Graceland and the crazy hair that's associated with Graceland. I always think of there's a great line that Marge Simpson has in an episode of The Simpsons. Take a shot, everyone, because now I mentioned The Simpsons, where Marge says, "I used to think I had the tallest hair, but that trip to Graceland really opened my eyes." So I think I'm with this. I think Elvis is going to win this one, and I thought I was losing sleep over this category, but looking at it, really not so much. I feel pretty confident about Elvis winning this one. Film editing: Banshees of Inisherin, Elvis, Everything Everywhere All at Once, Tar, Top Gun, Maverick. Lead us off on this one, Tony.
Oh boy. I have had Top Gun here for the longest time and felt really good about it, but with the surge of Everything Everywhere lately, I'm still concerned about it. I still have Top Gun for now, but could change it based on what you four have to say.
Well, I let me be the first to try to convince you that Everything Everywhere All at Once is going to win this. I feel relatively confident about it. I don't think it's a sure thing. I think it's between those two films. Although, I could also see Elvis pulling like a Bohemian Rhapsody and taking this. But yeah, Everything Everywhere All at Once. It won Critics' Choice. It won the BAFTA when the BAFTAs gave it nothing else. And under normal circumstances, Top Gun Maverick might have the most obvious, conspicuous editing, but in this case, that's really Everything Everywhere All at Once because it's bouncing between all these multiverses, sometimes in these rapid fire sequences. Yeah, and it's just been winning everywhere, and I feel like there might be a kind of a sweep for Everything Everywhere in top categories. Not necessarily a clean sweep, but yeah, I think this film is going to do well.
Yeah, I feel extremely confident that Everything Everywhere is definitely winning this category. I don't really see how it doesn't. I think so much of the movie and its storytelling relies on the editing in order to bring you through that journey, and also like weirdly with the emotion too. If you think about the way it like cuts and then breathes for that rock scene, it's really incredibly well done, and it's not only incredibly well done, it's the most obvious editing to me. Like, I'm not an editor. I don't know. Like, I come from theater where there is no editing, but I still can recognize that this is like the most obvious use of that art form, and I think that combined with its precursor wins and just the overall love I sense from the industry for this movie, it will pretty easily check off a win here.
The second it won BAFTA, I was like, it's over. Because given that it lost everything else, the fact that it won editing there, I think says it all. I do think there's a shot for Top Gun Maverick, but given that just I think Everything Everywhere just pretty much swept all the precursors, it's probably going to win Ace Eddie tonight in the comedy category. Um, I don't think it's losing. If it does lose, then that may say something about its best picture chances, in my opinion, now that it's like officially swept everything.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna stick with Everything Everywhere All at Once. I like some of you, I had Top Gun Maverick in there for the longest time, but Everything Everywhere All at Once is the fact that it's very showy with its editing, and the fact that it looks like it's probably the front runner for Best Picture. I think it seems pretty safe. It seems pretty reasonable to assume it'll win here. And then watch it go to the Banshees of Inisherin, because sometimes it feels like
which would make me so happy.
We know, Tony. We know. Costume design: Babylon, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, Elvis, Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris. Daniel.
I mean, I was torn for a while between Elvis and Black Panther Wakanda Forever for a while, just because Black Panther has the showiest costumes in this category. But then Everything Everywhere All at Once beat it at the Costume Designer Guild. And that was just kind of shocking to me. Not because the costumes and Everything Everywhere aren't excellent, but just because just the sheer volume of Black Panther Wakanda Forever, it seemed to like that would have been an easy win for it. So, with that in mind, and with the fact that they like Elvis so much more as a film overall, again, I'm going with Elvis. This is, Catherine Martin. It's hard to beat her when she's nominated for costumes. She's won this twice out of her 3 attempts. I believe she was nominated for Australia as well. So, yeah, Elvis.
Catherine Martin has pulled off a double Oscar win twice for costume design and production design, with both Great Gatsby and Moulin Rouge. And I think she's going to do the same thing a third time in her career for Elvis. So I don't know that anything else that I've seen can really win, given how, like, when I watched Wakanda Forever, I thought that could be a winner, just like you, Daniel, but it just hasn't registered with wins in the industry so far for this category. So I think Elvis takes it again.
This is the one category that if I were to choose which one Catherine Martin would win, it would be this one. I think the fact that Ruth Carter won for the first Black Panther movie, I think, people know that, given, and also that that's not nominated in picture and what have you. Everything Everywhere does scare me based on that costume win, because no one was expecting that. But I have Elvis.
Yeah, I have Elvis, and this was one that I felt pretty confident in. The fact that Catherine Martin could do this 3 times doesn't scare me, because once somebody has done something twice, 3 times doesn't seem that outlandish. And she's got the goods to back it up, so I'm going with Elvis.
I'm also going with Elvis here. I feel pretty confident about that. It's interesting to point out here, if Catherine Martin does win here and production design, that will mean that she has 6 Oscars, while her poor husband, suffering husband, Baz Luhrmann, has 0. Part of me actually thinks that sometimes to just, rub salt in the wound, will like use the Oscars for like, lifting, keep her arms in check and everything. And the thought of that just amuses me. But yeah, I think she'll pull out a win here. Her first nomination was actually in production design for Romeo and Juliet. But she was nominated for costumes there. So yeah, I think she'll win this one. And hopefully that marriage will still, weather the storm after it's done.
Yeah, she'll keep them like locked in a room, and he'll have to ask permission to look at them.
Who says that's not happening now, since she already has 4?
Yes, yeah, it's a room.
Maybe Baz goes in there and plays with them every so often.
Can only be accessed through retinal scan. Cinematography: All Quiet on the Western Front, Bardo, False Chronicle of a Handful of Truths, Elvis, Empire of Light, Tar, Top Gun. Oh, sorry, that's.
Oh, I see what you did.
I'm such a bitch. Sam, let's start with you.
I am going with All Quiet on the Western Front here. I think the photography is stunning. It's kind of the odds-on favorite after the aforementioned Top Gun Maverick was left out of the category. I am sort of cautious about Elvis, which I have in number 2, because that would break a precedent of, no woman having ever won this category, which I'm sure some people would love. And this would be a worthy one, I think, to finally check that box off. But I just, All Quiet on the Western Front just seems like it encompasses so much of what people look for with this category. And I think it's going to be a popular choice for Oscar voters.
Yeah, all these categories about Elvis potentially winning really does scare me. But I am picking All Quiet. It fits with, the style and genre of like previous films that won this, like the war epic action stuff like Blade Runner 1917, Revenant, what have you. I am cautious of Elvis because I think Mandy Walker will probably win at ASC, and James Friend is not nominated there, and it makes me flash back to 2 years ago when Nomadland lost cinematography to Mank, the ASC winner. But I'm pretty confident. I think this will be a tech category that All Quiet is pretty secure in.
Yeah, I'm going with All Quiet. I think Tar poses a threat here, but I agree with your point about Elvis possibly winning at ASC. But I just think that All Quiet kind of I'm not really losing a lot of sleep on this one. I think this falls in line with some of the recent films that have gotten some of the upper nominations, but maybe have won more in the tech area.
Yeah, if I had a personal vote, I'd probably give it to Bardo. I'm so happy that they nominated it, that they had the presence of mind to single out specifically the cinematography from that film. But yeah, only nomination for that, so I don't think that's happening. Yeah, I'm also predicting All Quiet on the Western Front. I'm also very wary of Elvis. Again, like if a film, we're talking about it winning a number of these categories, it could be the kind of film that voters just are kind of checking boxes because it's not just cinematographers voting for cinematographers, it's going to be the whole academy. And if they just start checking Elvis, they're like, oh yeah, it looked good, so I'm voting for it. Production design, costume design, cinematography, and it could go that route. But yeah, All Quiet on the Western Front, that BAFTA win helped me be more confident about it.
Yeah, I'm also pretty confidently going with All Quiet on the Western Front. Part of me actually thinks one to watch out for here is Tar. Florian Hoffmeister won the Spirit Award last night. I know there's a lot of people that really, really were taken by the way that film was photographed, but I do think it will be probably a safe win for All Quiet on the Western Front. Documentary feature: All That Breathes, All the Beauty and the Bloodshed, Fire of Love, A House Made of Splinters, and Navalny. Christopher.
I am so happy Navalny is getting the recognition. I never understood early on why it was always 5th in the Gold Derby odds. I love that movie. I it's there, that 20-minute phone call scene is straight out of, any espionage TV show like 24 or Homeland. And I have it. Second, I have Fire of Love, because of its DJ win. But BAFTA and PGA, that pretty much secured it for me.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Navalny was so far and away the best documentary I saw this year, which was shocking to me because I saw it late. I actually only watched it because I was interviewing the director, and then was just sitting stunned. I've watched it 3 times now. It's one of the most, I think it's one of the best documentaries of the last decade. And the fact that it is showing up everywhere. It won at BAFTA, and BAFTA's been a pretty good indicator at least the last 4 years in a row. So I'm going with that one. Plus, with everything with the war in Ukraine and Putin kind of like still at the top of everybody's. We're coming up on we're just past the 1-year anniversary of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. I think it's the perfect time. But all those points aside, I just find it to be just such a stunning achievement. It does not play like a documentary. It plays like a great thriller. So I'm going with that. And if I'm wrong, I like Chris, I do have Fire of Love in second. But I really do think that Navalny will and should win this.
This has been a really interesting category. I have switched to Navalny. It's interesting because All the Beauty and the Bloodshed was sort of the presumptive favorite early on, and then it just wasn't winning things. And so I had the theory that Fire of Love was going to come in and octopus teacher this thing. And it won DGA, so I thought we're on our way. But then Navalny took BAFTA, and it took the Producers Guild Award. And when the Producers Guild winner is nominated for the Oscar, a lot of times they're not, but when they are nominated for the Oscar, I think every time it wins the Oscar, or almost every time, that with the timeliness of it, with the Russian invasion of Ukraine. They should have Vladimir Zelensky present this award to Navalny. That would be, although you risk him giving it to like Fire of Love in a Chadwick Boseman, Anthony Hopkins moment, that would be kind of embarrassing. But it would be fitting.
I mean, only if it's the last award.
Yeah, save it for
our final award of the evening, documentary feat.
Yeah, this has been a crazy race because I feel like, as you said, Daniel, All the Beauty and the Bloodshed, I think started out just as the most kind of widely seen out of the main contenders and just was the most talked about for a while, but really has fallen. So I've been switching between Fire of Love and Navalny for a bit. I put Fire of Love there. I feel like this is one I may still switch, especially after listening to everyone. But I just feel like it feels, it's easy to latch on to those. It has like main characters in it, 2 main characters that are very easy to become invested in. And I think that's often an important factor in a lot of past documentary winners, when they give you like a person or 2 people that you can go on that journey with, which that movie does. So I currently have Fire of Love, but I put it there after the DGA, but I think BAFTA may ultimately sway me to Navalny, but I'm waffling between them.
I'm going with Navalny on this. Seems pretty safe. I think it's one of those things where, you combine the fact with how well made the documentary is with the themes of it. It feels like a documentary of the moment, has an urgency to it. Though I think you could make that case also for All the Beauty and the Bloodshed. But that seems like that was more of a critics thing. Though, I mean, Laura Poitras is a winner in this category before. So, it seems it would be a bit foolish to underestimate, the draw that she has to it. And, if All the Beauty and the Bloodshed were to win, Nan Goldin would win an Oscar too, which would be something for that as well. Interestingly, both Navalny and Fire of Love share a nominee in Shane Boris. So, I wonder if he has. I kind of, if he wins for one of them, I want him to accidentally pull out the speech he has for the other one, and then start thanking the wrong people. Because that would make a memorable moment for me. Animated feature: Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, The Sea Beast, Turning Red. Tony, we're going to start with you on this one.
Is anybody not picking Pinocchio?
Nope.
I think we could save ourselves a lot of time on this one.
I'm only mad it wasn't nominated for more categories. It should be in production design.
Yeah, the only thing that's making me question it, although I'm predicting it, it hasn't really lost anywhere it needed to, that it's needed. The fact that it didn't get any other nominations when we thought it would get song and we thought it would get score, that makes me think it's not 100% locked, but maybe like 90-95% locked, with a slight chance of a Marcel or a Puss in Boots upset. But yeah, there's no reason not to predict it. It's just won everything.
I'm just happy the Sea Beast got nominated.
I would be so happy if Puss in Boots were to win. I would probably wake up my entire apartment building from the Yelp that I would have if it were to win. But yeah, it's going to be Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, and it an earned win on that part. Mm-hmm. International feature film: All Quiet from Germany, All Quiet on the Western Front, directed by Edward Berger. From Argentina, 1985, directed by Santiago Mitre. From Belgium, Close, directed by Lucas Don't. From Poland, EO, directed by Jerzy Skolimowski. And from Ireland, The Quiet Girl, directed by Colm Bairid. I apologize, I am not good on Irish pronunciation. Daniel, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I've got All Quiet on the Western Front. This is another category where we could probably save ourselves some time. 9 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture. And having nominations in other categories doesn't necessarily guarantee you win foreign language film. Germany proved this when Lives of Others beat Pan's Labyrinth. But when you get that Best Picture nomination, it's almost impossible to lose Best International Film, judging from the history of the categories. So yeah, All Quiet on the Western Front.
Yeah, we could say, like with Pinocchio, okay, why didn't Edward Berger get a directing nomination? But in lieu of that, it's still in Best Picture. It still has so many categories that it's in play. So I think it's kind of a done deal for All Quiet.
Yeah, I mean, you can make the argument that Edward Berger didn't get a director because he's not that big of a name. But yeah, it's sealed. Argentina may upset like it did the Globes. I highly doubt it, but yeah.
I love that EO is in here because that film is just amazing. But yeah, this is All Quiet's to lose.
And I'm picking The Quiet Girl. So no, I'm going with All Quiet on the Western Front. Seems like a safe bet to, especially in this expanded era. You get that Best Picture nomination, and also the fact that you don't have to do the whole. Back when Lives of Others won this over Pan's Labyrinth, that was a time when when voters had to actually go to the physical screenings of these things, and that's where you would have a lot of these upsets. Where sometimes if a movie got nominated elsewhere, would still lose international feature. But I don't think we're gonna have that problem this year. Adapted screenplay: All Quiet on the Western Front, Glass Onion, A Knives Out Mystery, Living, Top Gun Maverick, and Women Talking. Sam.
This has been such a weird freaking category all season. I have All Quiet on the Western Front winning because it just feels like a really strong contender overall. It is not your typical winner for this category. I feel like Women Talking would be the typical type of movie, the type of script that would win, and it has picked up plenty of awards along the way, but I don't sense like a ton of passion for this the same way I do for All Quiet. It just, like, all season I've been wondering, why can't they single out one actress to nominate? Why couldn't it break in anywhere else? It didn't get a score nomination. So it felt like it was on kind of like the bottom, like the tail end of those one or two open slots in the Best Picture race, and managed to squeak in. I do think people still love and respect Sarah Polley, so I'm not counting her out at all. She could definitely take it, but I think All Quiet is just the stronger contender.
Yeah. I have All Quiet. Even though this category doesn't usually award sequels, and this is like three of them are in this category. Maybe if you count Living as a sequel to Ikiru, but yeah, I just feel like with its major domination at the BAFTAs, it won picture, director, screenplay. It won all the non-major, non-acting major categories. I just think it has to win. I think it has to win like one of those categories at the Oscars, and it can't win director. I don't know, and it's not. I don't think a lot of us are predicting it for picture. So this is its best bet. And if Women Talking got more nominations, if it didn't just get like the screenplay and the picture nomination, then maybe I would predict it. I don't think WGA is going to make much of a difference because of all the ineligibilities. So yeah, I have All Quiet.
I am sticking with Women Talking, and I will probably be wrong about this, but I don't care, because I feel like if Women Talking had not gotten into picture, then I would feel like, okay. But there was such a conversation after the nominations of why didn't Women Talking, and look how great Women Talking is. I can't believe it didn't get anywhere else. And I can actually understand why they couldn't coalesce. I mean, I remember a bunch of us were talking on our text thread about like who's the central performance in Women Talking that they're going to push, and none of us could agree on the same person. But what we could agree on was how fantastic this film is, and I think there's a real, like, and you saw it kind of last night at Independent Spirit I mean, Sarah Polley got up there and just, dominated that when they were accepting the Ensemble Award. So right now I actually do have Women Talking. I might change it in the next week, but I'm actually thinking I might stay here.
I want to believe, but I'm going with All Quiet on the Western Front. Not that All Quiet on the Western Front is a bad script, but Women Talking just feels to me like it's on its own plane here. I'd love to see it win for its writing above all else. But yeah, the fact that it didn't get a single nomination at BAFTA, including screenplay, and that All Quiet on the Western Front did win for its script there. The fact that All Quiet on the Western Front has more nominations here. Women Talking is the more typical kind of winner. It's obviously the talkier film. But whether or not Academy members like it, I'm actually more wondering if they watched it. And only nominated for picture and screenplay. I still wonder if they've watched it. So I'm a little bit pessimistic on that, but I'll win either way. If All Quiet on the Western Front wins, I'll be right. If Women Talking wins, I will be thrilled. If Top Gun Maverick wins, I quit.
It's I had Women Talking in this, and the fact that it got into Best Picture when the nominations came out, I was like, okay, that's cemented. This is going to be Women Talking. But then I thought a bit more to myself about this, and I found myself coming to this realization that where Women Talking has been able to get into things, it's only gotten in with the bare minimum that it needs, and that to me shows weakness in terms of enthusiasm. The fact that it's here is a great thing for it, but when I think of how it's been underperforming all season, to my utter bewilderment, I think I'm gonna stick with All Quiet on the Western Front on this one. Original screenplay. The Banshees of Inisherin, Everything Everywhere All at Once, The Fablemans, Tar, Triangle of Sadness. Christopher, start us off on this one.
Crap.
You're predicting, oh crap. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm predicting Triangle of Sadness. But I think this category decides Best Picture. I really do. I know McDonough won Globe, it won BAFTA. Everything Everywhere is probably going to win the WGA. But I just think if it does win picture and it wins director, I don't see how it loses this category. Just because of the pure passion of that movie. And the genre of it. Like everyone, you're either very passionate about it or you don't care about it, or you're mixed about it. So I feel I have Everything Everywhere All at Once just because of those reasons. But I do think if McDonough wins, that could spell trouble.
See, I'm going to go a different way here because I actually have McDonough winning, and I don't think it's that unusual. The Daniels are going to win director. Everything Everywhere is going to win Best Picture. Where we do see a break sometimes from picture, director, screenplay is in the screenplay category. You only have to go back to, say, something like, Three Billboards, which a lot of us thought was going to win Best Picture because it swept SAG. And then they gave it to Jordan Peele. I think that there is room here for, Banshees one of their best places that they can be rewarded. I was just thinking, even in the most recent years, you've had Best Picture things not necessarily translating to screenplay, and the screenplay is almost seen sometimes like the consolation prize. This is where they gave Kenneth Branagh one for Belfast. This is where they gave Promising Young Woman screenplay. Cameron Crowe winning for Almost Famous. You look at a lot of categories right here where there's a chance where there's a Best Picture frontrunner. I mean, Get Out beat Shape of Water and Three Billboards, and so I am not going to sit here and say that Everything Everywhere can't win this or won't win this. I think it very likely could, but I feel like this is the place where they're going to give McDonough an award, and so I'm gonna. This is another one I'm not going to change.
I'm going with Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Tony's right. There is precedent for them splitting picture and screenplay. Another example, which I think is really apt to this situation, is Nomadland. Winning picture and director. It was clearly winning picture and director by the time it got there. But it lost the screenplay award to The Father. Which is the more obviously writerly kind of film, and that's a really strong argument for Banshees of Inisherin. But I feel like this is going to be more like the Birdman year, where just the whole industry seems to be behind it. Birdman won PGA, DGA, SAG. It swept the industry. And then, even though they could have saved a little love for Richard Linklater for Boyhood or Wes Anderson for the Grand Budapest Hotel, they were not sentimental. They just went down the line with the film that they loved, which was Birdman. And I feel like we're in a similar boat this year with Everything Everywhere All at Once. So that's why I'm leaning towards that. But yeah, this is going to be a really close two-way race.
I have Banshees of Inisherin, and I've been thinking kind of along the lines of you, Daniel, about why Everything Everywhere could take this, because that's definitely very possible. But I do think this is the only place where Banshees can really win. And Banshees is a film that they clearly love. That Birdman year that you talk about, those other films maybe had one acting nomination or 0 acting nominations, whereas Banshees has 4, just like Everything Everywhere does. It's a movie that is beloved across the board. It got into editing, which was not guaranteed. So it feels like it's a movie that they want to give something to. People will not want to see it go home empty-handed. And I really think this is the most obvious choice because it is a writerly movie and very script heavy, and it's kind of the only option for it. So I'm going with Banshees.
Yeah, I am. I'm glad Daniel brought up Birdman. And Tony, the way you said it, when you said, they're not going to want to see, Banshees go home empty-handed. They don't want to see Martin McDonagh go home empty-handed. I always flash back to the 2014 and thinking, well, they're going to want to give Wes Anderson something, right? And I mean, original screenplay just makes the most sense for Grand Budapest Hotel, and it ended up Birdman ended up sweeping, and I think usually if something's winning picture these days, you'll usually see a correlation between picture and screenplay, but if picture and director match up, it's usually a coin flip as to whether or not screenplay is going to go along with the prize. Like Shape of Water, I think was probably in all of our 5 slot that for that year for original screenplay. I don't think anyone really thought it had a legitimate shot at winning, but I think it's I'm siding with Everything Everywhere All at Once here, but I'm actually fairly entertained by the fact that it's 3-2 on that one with this panel here. So we'll see how that one plays out. Performance by an actress in a supporting role. What's that?
I think through many of the acting categories, I think with the exception of one, I think you're going to hear a lot of
utterances of dread.
Yes,
that's actually the name of my one-man show. Angela Bassett, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever; Hong Chow, The Whale; Kerry Condon for the Banshees of Feckin' Inisherin; Jamie Lee Curtis for Everything Everywhere All at Once; and Stephanie Hsu, Everything Everywhere All at Once. Tony?
Oh shit, you're going to me first. This category is giving me such, because I think there's 3 potential winners here. And earlier this week, I had Kerry Condon. And then Daniel said something that made me think, oh, crap. Because my original train of thought for going for Kerry Condon is, you had Angela Bassett, who was winning everything up until BAFTA. Kerry Condon won BAFTA. Jamie Lee Curtis won SAG. And what does that do for the Oscar vote? Well, what that does is it gives us 2 overdue, and I know certain people hate the word vote splitting, but you get 2, overdue, long respected, beloved actors in Angela Bassett and Jamie Lee Curtis. Could that split the vote and then give us the BAFTA winner, Kerry Condon? But then Daniel said something that I thought was very apt, and that was, well, we do have a recent example of somebody winning Globes and Critics' Choice and losing BAFTA and not even being nominated at SAG.
She actually wasn't nominated at BAFTA either.
Oh, she wasn't nominated at BAFTA. Thank you. And that's Regina King. So right now, as of this point in this conversation, I have Angela Bassett. But I could be swayed to go to either Jamie Lee Curtis or I could be swayed to go to Kerry Condon. But I'm still sticking with Bassett. I still think there's a large enough percentage of Academy voters that respect her, that love her, that don't care that it's for a Marvel film. We used to say comic book characters couldn't win Oscars. They can. Heath Ledger won one. So it can happen. And Angela Bassett just seems to be that person. So convince me otherwise.
I'm not going to, because I'm predicting Angela Bassett for the moment. Not confidently. I was looking at my list and I was just like, well, do I switch to Kerry Condon? Do I switch to Jamie Lee Curtis? And I really couldn't. For some, my gut's telling me they're not winning. Although Kerry Condon does make me a little bit more nervous because I feel like, she could be that weird lone supporting actress win for the film. She could be like the Tilda Swinton and Michael Clayton for Banshees of Inisherin, where she just kind of, sneaks away with it, or the Patricia Arquette in Boyhood, although she was a slam dunk in that category that year. So it's tough, but Angela Bassett has the narrative. Jamie Lee Curtis does too, but Jamie Lee Curtis also, in terms of the performance, it's not really an Oscar-y kind of performance, and she's got Stephanie Hsu to worry about. Even though that didn't matter at the SAG Awards, I think that could still be a factor at the Oscars. So yeah, I've still got Bassett. I'm not confident, but like I'm sort of leaving it at her by default, and watch them choose chaos and give it to Stephanie Hsu, which would make me incredibly happy. But
or give it to Carrie Condon, which would be my favorite. So
yeah, I think the only one who would truly shock me in this category is, no offense to Hong Chow, but she's the only one who I really don't think has a shot. I think everyone else is at least in this.
I think, one of the main reasons why these precursor awards, the televised ones, are so important is because you see a winner get up there and you get to say either, oh, that feels so good to have that person having this moment, or no, we're going to change that. I think it needs to go to this other person. And I feel like it's kind of put us in a stalemate because people have that exact same, like, oh, this is what we want from an award show, with both Angela Bassett and Jamie Lee Curtis. So I'm definitely between the two of them. I think SAG has put me over the edge for Jamie Lee Curtis because she had such an incredible reception in that room, coupled with the fact that not only is she in a Best Picture winner, probably winner, but it's a Best Picture nominee that people love, that in the expanded ballot era, where we usually don't have, these sweep winners, we could very easily have that situation happening with Everything Everywhere, of people checking it down for picture, director, supporting actor, supporting actress, editing. So I think those things in a very tight race lean slightly more towards Jamie Lee Curtis. Yes, she has Stephanie Hsu there. If I was voting, I personally think Stephanie Hsu has the greatest level of difficulty involved with her character out of any of the 5 nominees, but that hasn't been a factor, really. She hasn't won as much unless it's a breakout role category at some of the smaller awards. So I'm not 100% on it by any means. I don't think anyone actually can be, but I'm going with Jamie Lee Curtis. I think it will be one of the 2 veterans.
So I'm going 180 and I'm picking Carrie Condon. And it's more of like, I just don't see the other 2 winning versus I see why Carrie Condon would win. I do think if Banshees was going to win anywhere, I think it would be her, and rather than original screenplay. What stops me from predicting Bassett is SAG. Like, I had a feeling she would lose at the BAFTA just because they just don't like Black Panther. But SAG, the same award show that gave Black Panther Best Ensemble and did not go with her and went instead for Jamie Lee Curtis, I think that's the nail in her coffin. And, Regina King, sure, she wasn't nominated. In this case, Angela Bassett was, and she lost. So I think that's more of a detriment to her. And I think anyone who has seen Everything Everywhere All at Once wholeheartedly agrees that out of the 2 supporting performances, Stephanie Hsu gives the better performance. The reason I just think SAG, and like I'll talk about this later when we get to Best Actress, I don't think SAG is gonna go. I don't think the Oscars are going to go crazy in the acting categories for Everything Everywhere All at Once as SAG did. And I also feel like if Jamie Lee Curtis were to win, just like she did at SAG, I think Michelle Yeoh would also win. And I don't think Everything Everywhere is winning 3 acting awards at the Oscars. That would be like very unprecedented. So I have Carrie Condon because of BAFTA. And because I think Banshees won't go home empty-handed.
I am pretty much on the same page as you, Chris. I'm I'm also picking Carrie Condon. And I think you hit the nail right on the head there. The fact that it didn't surprise me at all that Bassett lost BAFTA. That made perfect sense to me. But her losing SAG to me was such it's such a red flag, and it feels like if it was one of those things where even like it made like if I were to look at the season in advance and look at, okay, where is Angela Bassett most likely to win, I would have said SAG. And the fact that she wasn't able to, win that is just a huge red flag for me. And I don't, and for some reason, even though yes, the reception she got in that room was incredible, but I just don't see even though I genuinely love Jamie Lee Curtis's performance in Everything Everywhere All at Once, and I think I think she's great in that movie. I remember when I went to see that movie, and it didn't hit me until like 2 minutes after she's on screen that was Jamie Lee Curtis, and it hit me like a freight train when I realized. I was like, no way, but yeah, I'm going with Carrie Condon with this. It feels it's one of the things that for me it just feels right. I think, and that BAFTA win helps tremendously. And it's one of those things where even if people may not be crazy about the movie, especially with people who are not as crazy about the movie as others, they really identify with that character, and they identify with the way that she views the whole situation of the movie. So I think that plays in her favor as well. So I'm going with Carrie Condon on that.
Yeah, she'll get the vote of people who think they're all feckin' boring. So,
God, I want that.
I hope that's the Oscar clip. I really do.
And they just bleep out every other word.
I do love that we're in 3 different camps in this group, because that's what this category is. So that feels very fitting.
Am I the only one?
I would be less surprised if I would be less surprised if Hong Chow won for The Menu, actually. If that's what was on that envelope, just for the line, "These are tortillas," just that's my favorite line of the year.
Am I the only one that was not shocked when Angela Bassett lost SAG?
Yes,
because that did not shock me at all.
Yeah,
I wasn't like hugely shocked.
I was pretty shocked.
But
given who she lost to, yes,
I was really shocked. I was surprised she lost to Jamie Lee.
See, that was who I thought she would lose to, because Jamie Lee Curtis, when you have SAG-AFTRA, which is not just film but it's also television, and Jamie Lee Curtis had such a long career in television that she got some of those votes, I think, too. So that didn't shock me as much.
Yeah, it's one where I really thought she was a slam dunk for it. So it really did genuinely catch me off guard. The fact that it was Jamie Lee Curtis who won. I mean, it's one that in retrospect makes a lot of sense when you look at the factors, but it was still so it caught me so off guard in the moment.
This is also like very reflective of how much, given that SAG is expanding, especially with AFTRA, like it makes you question like how much of an impact SAG still has with the Oscars, given its like voting body.
Supporting actor: Brendan Gleeson in The Banshees of Inisherin, Brian Tyree Henry, Causeway, Judd Hirsch, The Fabelmans, Barry Keoghan, The Banshees of Inisherin, Ke Huy Quan, Everything Everywhere All at Once. Daniel?
Well, I lucked out. We're starting with me on the easy one. Ke Huy Quan's winning this. There was like some shadow of a doubt when he lost the BAFTA, but the best thing that could have happened to him was losing the BAFTA to Barry Keoghan. If Brendan Gleeson had won BAFTA, then I think he's sort of looming in the shadows there, like potentially to upset. But the fact that Keoghan beat Gleeson at BAFTA, and I don't see him as a huge factor here, and then Ke Huy Quan just won the SAG award anyway. I think this is the most comfortable acting. Well, I think obviously this is the most comfortable acting award. We'll talk about the lead acting races; those are chaos too. I think this is a safe one.
Yeah. It's just Ke all the way. I think I don't see any other. There's no one else this entire Oscar season in any category, I think, that has a better narrative, that people want to see him accept an award on that podium, to see what he has to say. There's no one else who even comes close to the kind of rooting factor that he has this season. So I think he wins in the biggest landslide of the night.
Yeah, this is like there. I think there's three locks in this ceremony. Avatar with visual effects, All Quiet for international, and Kiwi Kwan for supporting. I think him losing BAFTA says more about what they felt about Everything Everywhere All at Once than they did about his performance. So yeah, that's all.
Yeah, nothing to add. It's Kwan.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Even it was weird when I saw his speech at BAFTA yesterday. At first, I thought, I was like, oh, this feels like it may be like a bit of a lull, which it's his win. It's his moment. He can do whatever he wants. But the speech, but then he started like thanking the people of like people who worked specific positions that he had worked in film, and he's like, and I love what he said. I think he was talking about the boom mic operator. He said, I want to thank that person because it looks easy. It is not easy to do what they do. So I think he's just this is gonna be a wonderful culmination for one of the most heartwarming narratives we've had for this season, and so good for him on that one. Actress in a leading role: Cate Blanchett, Tar; Anna de Armas, Blonde; Andrea Briceborough, To Leslie; Michelle Williams, The Fablemans; Michelle Yeoh, Everything Everywhere All at Once. Sam, start us off.
When I say Michelle, you say yo. I'm going against the grain. I know a lot of people are doing Cate Blanchett here, and just she very well could. It makes me nervous because I'm not currently predicting Tar to win any awards, and I know it's a really beloved film. But this whole season feels unprecedented in the way that Everything Everywhere All at Once has kind of steamrolled a lot of these, BAFTA aside, has steamrolled a lot of awards ceremonies. We were even talking about costume design. Weren't expecting it to beat Black Panther, but the costumers were just like, you know what, I love this film, we want to check it off too. And I think that's very powerful. So I'm predicting that they win 3 acting awards, which seems crazy in a 10-picture lineup to win that many. But I think she, again, has a great narrative. She's someone who people really want to see up there and are really happy to see up there. And this season has shown me that these voters have no trouble just kind of checking off this film down the line. They are extremely passionate about it. And I think she will pull out a win.
I'm sticking with Cate. This reminds me of a few years ago when Denzel Washington won his first SAG award, when everyone was predicting Casey Affleck, and he hasn't won. He didn't win one. He hasn't won one prior to that, and so people just want to give him that as like a sort of a legacy prize, like something he should have. And I feel that's the same with Michelle Yeoh. Like, the thing with SAG is they really went for them, and the indie spirits. They really went for Everything Everywhere All at Once. So you have to like take into account like how much the Oscars will have, how much that will affect the Oscars. And I think we all presumed that Everything Everywhere would do very well at SAG, and that it would like just dominate most of these categories. But I think even the people who like love Michelle Yeoh, or who are thinking of voting for it, they all, like, most of them do agree that Cate Blanchett gives the best performance of her career. And I think that's it harkens back to, the Anthony Hopkins win. And the fact that, like, I just don't think, like, unless that movie pulls a huge sweep, I just don't think. I think Cate Blanchett still has it because I don't have Tar winning anything else. And yeah, I'm like rambling, but yeah, I'm sticking with Cate.
Yeah, not to poo-poo your Denzel Washington analogy, but poo-poo, because
Fair.
the difference
Fair.
being is
Fair.
because the difference being is that Denzel Washington already had 2 Oscars at that time, whereas Michelle Yeoh does not have any. And and again, I am on record as not being a fan of Everything Everywhere, but I love Michelle Yeoh, and she has developed this goodwill that has happened at just the right time. She's peaking. The timing could not be better for her. She's winning all this stuff, and everybody is. I think the best thing that happened to Michelle Yeoh was the 1-2 punch of Jamie Lee Curtis and James Wong at SAG, just singing Michelle Yeoh's praises in a very Andrea Riseborough sort of way. And I think that during Oscar voting is key. And I switched to Michelle Yeoh this morning after I watched her speech at Independent Spirit. I was like, my God, they are just going for her at just the right time. So I still think Kate could take it. I don't think that it's a lock for Michelle by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think anybody thinks it's a lock, except for some obnoxious folks on film Twitter. But I think the momentum is with Michelle right now.
Yeah, I was with Cate Blanchett for the longest time. I actually predicted Cate Blanchett would win SAG. I thought the Michelle Yeoh thing might end up being kind of a mirage. And just all the love for Tar would kind of coalesce around Cate Blanchett. There was a moment that convinced me otherwise right before her name was called at the SAG Awards, and it was the enthusiasm when her name was read as a nominee in the room. Like that reminded me very much of the Parasite cast getting a standing ovation. Just hearing them announce her name as a nominee and to hear the round of applause she got compared to Cate Blanchett, who, it's Cate Blanchett. Everyone knows she's great. She'll be great again. Tar is kind of a chillier film. So she has 2 Oscars already. I just don't feel that enthusiasm for her right now, especially at this moment when Oscar voting is taking place. It just feels like it feels like the passion is behind Michelle Yeoh, and I feel like that's going to sway it.
I am sticking with Cate Blanchett on this one. It just feels like I mentioned this last week that, if there's something I'm emotionally invested in, it's very tough for me sometimes to predict it. I just feel like, I don't know. It just feels like I can't bring myself to actually believe it'll happen until I see it. So I'm just going to stick with Kate on this one. I'm just going to have that in my mind. This is such an interesting, setup between 2 very, very powerful actresses at the top of their game. And I wish we had more races like this in more years. So we'll see what happens on that front.
I actually think Kate is rooting for Michelle at this point.
She is.
She might be rooting for Riseborough.
Well, one thing I will say about everything, the actors, whenever Michelle Yeoh, Ke Huy Quan, Stephanie Hsu, or Jamie Lee Curtis, whether they're winning an award or whether they're in an interview, they all talk about each other in a way that is very genuine and very heartwarming. And they sell each other in the whole film like as a package. So it's like, if you're voting for one of us, you're voting for this family, you're voting for all of us. And it's a brilliant play because it's very genuine that they're all very connected. And I think that's helping them immensely.
I second what you say there, Tony, because I have believed for the longest time that Cate Blanchett is voting for Michelle Yeoh on her ballot.
Just the hug between the 2 of them. I think it was at Independent Spirits when they were on the red carpet last night. That was just like, Michelle, Kate's voting for Michelle.
I mean, the interview they did with the Actors on Actors thing for Variety was just like, what was it like? It was like 45 minutes of pure magic, just listening to those 2 bounce things off of each other. And at one point, Kate's talking about the first time that her and Michelle met, and Michelle can't remember, and Kate says, I think you were drunk when that happened," and Michelle just replies, "No, that sounds very much like me." Best actor, Austin Butler. Jesus Christ. Austin Butler, Elvis, Colin Farrell, The Banshees of Inisherin, Brendan Fraser, The Whale, Paul Mescal, Aftersun, Bill Nye, Living. Let's start with who do we start with? Is it Sam? Did we start with you on the last one?
I can't remember. Probably.
I think we did. Okay, so Christopher, you're first.
I have Fraser, just purely because I think he has the momentum right now. I'm very cautious on the sentimental factor. That's one of the reasons why that was one of the reasons why I'm not predicting Michelle Yeoh, but I feel like Brendan Fraser has like the same career narrative as Kiwi Kwan, and they give the very similar emotional speeches at the SAG Awards. I also think that that like I there are certain Academy members that like will probably like based on their logic will think that they have plenty of time to award Austin Butler, because I don't think because this is like his like first major breakout leading role, and given their history, I don't think they like to reward like the younger actors. It's really a question about like, do we like Elvis? Do we support Elvis along with Austin Butler's performance, or do we really want to root for Fraser for The Whale, for a movie that's not in Best Picture? But I have Fraser.
I also have Fraser. I might be convinced to change to Butler, but I agree with Chris. I think that the momentum, again, happening right at the peak of Oscar voting. What I'm worried about is, you're going to have a camp that's very staunchly in Fraser's corner. You're also going to have a camp that's very firmly in Austin Butler's corner. Could that then clear the way for, which would make me so happy, is Colin Farrell? But right now, I'm leaning towards Fraser. Part of me wants to predict Butler only because I can't believe Rami Malek has an Oscar for lip syncing and Austin Butler actually did everything. So yeah, go ahead and at me on that. I stand by it. But I'm sticking with the sentiment right now with Fraser.
This is a tough one because Fraser has the narrative and Butler has the film in terms of the amount of esteem it has within the Academy. They clearly like Elvis better than The Whale. The Whale couldn't even get in for screenplay when the script is so much a central focal point of the film. So I am going with Butler. I think the BAFTA win was a huge get for him, especially over Colin Farrell. There's so much enthusiasm around this film within the industry, and the parallel that I'm looking at for guiding me on this race is the Mickey Rourke, Sean Penn battle, which again happened to be a performance directed by Darren Aronofsky, where you had SAG and BAFTA split, although they split the other way, between Rourke and Sean Penn. And they ended up giving the Oscar to the actor giving the showy biographical performance in the Best Picture nominee. So I do think Austin Butler will win. He would be like the fourth or fifth youngest ever to win Best Actor. I'm not sure exactly how many days are between him and Maximilian Schell. But yeah, he would be one of the youngest. But I do think the love for the film and the fact that he's giving a biographical performance, which as Tony mentioned, Rami Malek has an Oscar, which I'm not as aggrieved about as he is. Um, but yeah, I think so. I think Austin Butler ekes it out, even though Fraser has the absolute sentimental narrative.
Yeah, I'm also going with Butler just because he fits that mold. I think this is another kind of battle of the Titans, like best actresses between Butler and Fraser, but it just seems like he has the love of his film, and he also, it's not like he doesn't transform himself in the film, which they love to see. He has an immense amount of range. He sings live. He goes from playing young Elvis to the obviously more decrepit one later in life.
You can say barbiturate infested.
You can say old puffy Elvis.
Old puffy Elvis. He does everything that they like to see. And so I do think the personal narrative of Fraser is better, but I think ultimately passion for the film coupled with an amazing performance will put Butler over the edge.
Yeah, I am also going with Austin Butler on this. I do understand what some of you guys have been saying about Fraser having the momentum. I really get that, but and it's interesting, Daniel. I'm glad you mentioned Austin Butler's BAFTA win because I forgot about that because I actually forgot about that, and that actually makes me feel much more confident in picking this. And I also have, I look at it, I have Elvis winning 3 other awards as well, and with costumes, production design, and makeup and hairstyling. So it kind of makes sense that for me that it's going to go to this. But Fraser is right there. He's got that narrative. There's going to be, but I think also I feel like there are, when I look at Elvis versus the Whale, I think there are a lot more people who have a lot more antipathy towards the Whale than I know. There are people that are firmly against Elvis, but I think when it comes to people that viscerally are against something, I think the people that are that way for the Whale are more numerous than for Elvis. So I think that'll probably hurt it as well. So I'm going with Austin Butler there.
And I think people who are negative against Elvis, I don't think they're negative against Butler. I don't think Butler is the thing anyone similar to Bohemian Rhapsody. I think Rami Malek was something that people liked in a film that a lot of people didn't.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Achievement.
Even though it won editing.
It was the most awarded film at that Oscar ceremony. So
why are we bringing up such painful memories here?
Who brought it up? Wasn't me.
Achievement in directing: Martin McDonagh for The Banshees of Inisherin, Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert for Everything Everywhere All at Once, Steven Spielberg, The Fabelmans, Todd Field, Tar, Ruben Östlund, Triangle of Sadness. And I believe we are starting with Tony.
The Daniels are winning this. What else needs to be said? It's not even close.
Yeah, there's a shadow still of Steven Spielberg, but no, once Spielberg lost DGA, I feel like this was kind of, the deal was sealed, and the Daniels are just going to walk away with it too.
I don't even think there's a shadow for Steven Spielberg. I think if there is going to be a crazy upset, it would actually be Todd Field, in an effort to give Tar something. I don't think Spielberg is going to take it. I think the Daniels will pretty handily walk away with this one, and deservedly so.
DGA is rarely wrong. They have a better percentage than the PGA. So yeah, it's the Daniels. Even if it loses picture, it wins this.
And I'm also going with Kwan and Scheinert here. DGA was that thing that cemented it for me. Yeah, that's where we have that. All right. And finally, Best Picture nominees: All Quiet on the Western Front, Avatar: The Way of Water, The Banshees of Inisherin, Elvis, Everything Everywhere All at Once, The Fabelmans, Tar, Top Gun Maverick, Triangle of Sadness, and Women Talking.
Women are talking.
Women be talking. They also be shopping too. He'll start us off before we get canceled.
Well, obviously,
what is this we, Kimosabi? No, there's no we with that.
You are going down on this ship with me if I go down.
Beg your pardon?
Yeah, this is Everything Everywhere All at Once. Or like as someone who think this was my favorite film of the year, so I'm always hesitant, like of my bias in years where my favorite film could win Best Picture. But yeah, and it's such a weird movie and potentially divisive movie, but like it just hasn't stumbled. It won PGA, DGA, SAG. It swept the spirits in a way that's never been done before. It swept the SAGs in a way that was never done before. The only place it was weak was at the the Golden Globes, which do they really matter? And the BAFTAs, which went all in for All Quiet on the Western Front, which I think is the only possible upset here at this point. But yeah, they just have everything, so everywhere all at once. So I think they're going to live up to their title.
I agree. I think Everything Everywhere All at Once will have an incredible night. And I think they may actually have the most wins out of a lot of recent Best Picture winners from this expanded era. I too think All Quiet is the only like potential upset, but it just doesn't seem like, it's Everything Everywhere is just a movie about heart. It's, even though it's weird, there's heart and comedy and touching moments in its weirdness. So I think that makes it accessible for people who otherwise would say, oh, what is this sci-fi thing? So I think it has been the story of the season and will pretty easily win.
Yeah, I have Everything Everywhere. Also because there is no clear alternative. I will say that there are seeds that it might lose given BAFTAs, and it's like we don't know how it performs with international voters on a preferential ballot. And the genre and the story is unlike any or is rarely like anything they award for Best Picture at the Oscars. And we already are aware of there's groups of people that are probably not going to get this movie, or they just don't understand it, or they just don't like it. But also the fact that it's just swept all the guilds, including SAG. So that, I think that pretty much cements it. But it would be very funny if All Quiet won, and that would be if that was the first Best Picture win for Netflix.
It's interesting because when I think about Best Picture winners, they tend to fall into three categories. They tend to fall into winners that I love, winners that I hate, and winners that I respect, but that movie wasn't for me. And Everything Everywhere falls into that middle category for me. It's a film that I just I've watched twice and still don't get it. But I understand why people love it. And so I have no problem with it winning, and I think it's going to win pretty handily. I think what Chris says about, the only thing that I've ever worried about with that film is how it will perform on a preferential ballot, which I thought was kind of fixed with PGA. But then when you add the international ballot and the fact that it did so poorly at BAFTA, I don't think that means it's going to lose. I still have it winning, but I think it'll be interesting to see what happens. I won't be shocked if something else wins, and that's something else being All Quiet. I think it's the only thing that can possibly upset it.
I'm also picking Everything Everywhere All at Once. I feel like it's pretty safe here. I think I'm with you, Chris. I think the only thing that possibly has presented itself as an alternative is All Quiet, but I just don't see, it doesn't feel like it's a very strong alternative, and feels like that support can go elsewhere. I think it's one that it does feel weird to feel this confident about predicting a movie like that to win Best Picture. But stranger things have happened. One thing that I think is actually interesting here, it probably won't happen, but if Elvis were to win Best Picture, Baz Luhrmann would finally win an Oscar, but Catherine Martin is also a producer on this, so she would still also win another one and just keep the ratio on that, alive and well. Something I'm curious about with you guys, how many Oscars do you have Everything Everywhere winning on the night?
Okay,
at least three. Make that four.
I have six.
I have six.
I have five.
Four. I'm counting. I have five as well.
Like picture, director, screenplay, supporting actor, and like editing.
Yeah, I have picture director, actress, supporting actor, and editing.
I have picture, director, actress, supporting actor, screenplay, and editing.
I have all that minus screenplay.
And I have picture, director, supporting actor, original screenplay, and editing. So we all have it going either 5 or 6. It sounds like. It does feel
the most
weird.
Awarded Best Picture since The Artist. No Best Picture has won more than 4 Oscars since The Artist.
Yeah, it does feel weird, and it feels weird to be because the last time I was predicting a movie to win Best Picture and win more than that was La La Land. And one of the things I distinctly remember about watching that ceremony was when it was losing some of those awards, like when it lost sound mixing, when it lost editing, and thinking to myself, oh, wow, does this spell trouble for it later on? But then when it picked back up, winning original score and original song, when it started actually getting those wins, I thought it was safe. But, it's one of those things where it's going to be interesting to see what the narrative of this is while we're watching it. If Everything Everywhere loses editing, if it loses original screenplay, are we going to be starting to feel a lot more nervous about where it stands leading up to Best Picture?
I think those are the two canaries, are editing and original screenplay, and depending on screenplay and where they place them, they might be early-ish in the night, so that would be interesting.
Were you going to say something?
No, I was just exactly what Daniel said, and I also think the thing that it helps losing at BAFTAs is that, with the exception of Nomadland, BAFTA has never been right on Best Picture since I think 12 Years a Slave. So it's not like that hurts it too much, I believe.
So, there's something else that I just want to touch on briefly here, and I'm curious to hear what your guys' thoughts on this are. I really do fear, if it were Everything Everywhere to lose Best Picture or Best Actress or possibly both, I really fear what the discourse will be about this, though. I mean,
Charlie, we lost your audio.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I fear for what the discourse will be on, although I'm always fearful of what discourse will be about anything online these days. But I feel like if Everything Everywhere All at Once were to lose Best Picture or lose Best Actress or both, that the discourse online were to be very toxic. And I am I'm curious as to what your guys' thoughts on that would be.
I think it depends on what it would lose to. I think honestly, Cate Blanchett beating Michelle Yeoh, I don't think there would be much discourse over that because that's a close race.
And the thing that actually gives me a little bit of hope is that it's not just any thing that has to it's not just anything that it's losing to. I mean, it's a performance that is like universally hailed as Blanchett being the best, one of if not the best of her career.
I think because I was also witness to people on film Twitter when they thought that Power of the Dog was going to lose Dakota, and yeah, that was fun to read. But I think if it loses to All Quiet, I think that like shows what the majority is at the Academy, because Everything Everywhere All at Once is like the it movie for like, the current times and like the more edgy younger crowd, whereas All Quiet easily services the older Academy voters, two very, very different groups. So it if it were to lose to All Quiet, I expect some rage.
I expect rage on film Twitter no matter what, which is why I tend to stay away from it. But you can hear certain cries going up of, oh, this didn't win. What does that mean? Sometimes it doesn't mean anything. Sometimes it just means that somebody got more votes. And, you can't necessarily indict an entire organization. This is likely to be one of the more diverse, just in terms of acting winners. This could easily be one of the more diverse groups we've ever seen. But it's such a crapshoot. And no matter what happens, there's going to be Monday morning quarterbacking coupled with, caffeine-fueled rage on Twitter. And so I find that I just feel like the answer is to give those people, less attention.
Yeah, I try to stay off of Twitter in general. I'm in my TikTok phase, so what I want most of all is for there to be an Angela Bassett did the thing moment on gay TikTok, because that gave me life for like 2 weeks. It's still giving occasionally. So please Oscars, do something that weird and wonderful and pleasing.
It also makes me question if Everything Everywhere All at Once can win on the first round of voting, because it has enough number ones to cross the 51% mark. And gun to my head right now, I don't think it can, but I don't know. I've been wrong before, so.
I do have a tough time seeing that as one that will win on that first round of voting.
But I do think it'll be far enough ahead on that first round of voting that even if it's divisive, it'll be hard for another film to catch it.
Agreed.
Yeah, I'm definitely on that thing. I'm definitely on that line with you. Well, we've gotten this done in under 3 hours. So we're
already ahead of the Oscars.
And other sites that it took 4 hours for, you could suck it. This has been interesting and has been therapeutic, but has not calmed any of my existential dread about getting some of these predictions wrong. Because I always feel like if I don't get enough right, then I don't deserve to be writing here, and I should get the Gold Derby equivalent of whatever the Gong Show is, and they should just gong me off and wheel me off with the unseen comedian who wore a paper bag over his head.
Have them hook us off like at the Apollo.
Oh, that would be amusing. I would be in favor of that just for it being, visually pleasing. So I want to thank all of you for being here. Daniel, tell the good people on the internet where they can follow you.
Well, they can follow me. You can follow me on Twitter. You won't get sick of me because I'm rarely there, at Dan_something. My Instagram is Dan something. My TikTok is, where I am a budding influencer, is DL_Montgomery. So find me you can find me on Facebook as Daniel Montgomery. So I'm everywhere to varying degrees.
And did you prefer Chris or Christopher?
Tony asked me the same question when he emailed me, and so did Rob. I really don't care. People say Chris because it's easier. It's one syllable. but I could care less. But everyone gets mad when I do say I don't care, so I just say Chris.
We demand one answer.
We demand clarity.
Yeah, people can find me on Twitter. I forgot my username. I think it's Chris Tsang like 1775 or something. See, I rarely go on it either. I never post because film Twitter is toxic.
Because you value your mental health.
Yeah, and so I just do a bunch of retweets and sometimes I comment on stuff. But yeah.
Tony?
You can find me on Twitter at GD Tony Ruiz, which many people call me for varying reasons, and read all of our stuff at goldderby.com.
And you can find me on Twitter at Charles Bright, and you can read all our stuff, all of my stuff at goldderby.com as well. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and we will see you next week to react to everything that has gone down at the ceremony. Take care, everyone.